In today's episode, we are going to be talking a little bit about Ben's background. And in the next episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about my background, because we feel that we've obviously given you a lot of advice and a lot of coaching of our coaching experience over the last couple of episodes. But we think it's really important for you to see where those insights have come from through our own respective training and coaching journeys. And I for one, am actually very excited to hear a little bit more about Ben's background. And obviously, we've touched on elements of this as we've gone through the last couple of episodes. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to hearing a little bit more about the things that have shaped how Ben looks at fitness and how he actually goes about coaching. So, without further ado, welcome to the Training Tangents podcast. Ben, are you ready to get straight in?
I am indeed. Let's go.
Excellent. Okay. So we're not going to do a give me your background, that sort of thing. We're going to sort of prompt it with a few questions. So to start off with, if someone only knew you as a coach today, or is it this is potentially the first episode they've ever listened to, what parts of your story would they be missing?
So if someone was introducing me today, and this is the version of me that they're seeing, there's quite a lot they're probably not seeing, mainly because I'm not great at sharing this type of stuff on social media, and that's how you do it. But I think what people might be missing is the perspective that I have in general when it comes to life, when it comes to fitness, and then my view on how we should be looking at things. So what I mean by that is cystic fibrosis. Let's just talk about that straight away, because it's shaped who I am and the way I do and why I do things the way I do. I was saying this today, that if I was born 20 years before I was born, so I was born in 1990, if I was born in the 70s, I in all likelihood wouldn't be here. Like, I know that. Like, the advancements in medication have kept me alive. And even when I was born in 1990, the doctors told my parents I would be lucky if I made it to 20. And even then, 20 would not be a very nice looking 20. There'd be oxygen tanks in every room. The nurse told my parents that their lives are essentially over because of me. They would never travel again. I wouldn't be able to go to normal schools. Basically, I was an anchor to their lives. Now, I obviously learned about this all as I was growing up. It's not like my parents just like dumped all this information on me at one point. They was slowly drip fed and just, conversations with my parents about this. But I think knowing that I was different to everyone else growing up, like my brother, my sister, my cousins, my friends, they didn't have to do what I had to do. It gave me a unique perspective that I honestly didn't really think about until I was a bit older. That life is extremely precious, and it is not something that you can just bank on having tomorrow. And I think that perspective it's not always present in me. I'm not walking around like some enlightened Buddha, but I think I can snap into that mindset more readily, I think, than I realize a lot of other people could. And it just gives me a different perspective on things, which can allow me to, the way I describe this with my clients is the ability to have a first person perspective and a third person perspective. So in video games, first person is obviously you see what's in your hand. If you're like in a shooter, you can see the barrel of your gun in your hands. You can't see anything else around you. And a third person is obviously that zoomed out perspective where you can see your character, you can see them interacting in the world. And I think a lot of people live predominantly in that first person where it's all reactive. It's never really thinking about the big picture and what's going on and how they're behaving in this environment. And I think that's something that I always try to do with my clients, is just to remind them, while yes, we are trying to improve upon certain things and we're working towards goals, let's not like appreciate where we are today. Like, I think that's very difficult for people to do. They're constantly looking for the next step and the next step and the next step. And there's very little, like, how many people do you know that can say that they're genuinely content with their lives? It's always, you ask someone what they want to achieve, and there's always like a list as long as their arm of the things they want to achieve. But I think, one of the things that I have grown to realize is that being content is your actual goal. Like, not happiness. Happiness is a state of being. Sadness is a state of being. I think contentment of being like, hey, look, I'm pretty happy with, what's going on. And I think that's one of the things I always try to remind my clients of, because there was a point in my life, growing up, where if you had written down all the things that I've done and achieved and the crazy adventures I've been on, I don't think I would have believed you because of my mindset back then of like, I'm probably not even going to make it to 30, never mind 35, nearly 36 next month.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the piece of the puzzle that, or the piece that people might not see, is that deep appreciation for just being alive. Like I think life's as an incredible adventure, and you get to do so many things, but part of the key to kind of open those doors to adventure is being physically ready. And I think that's why I predominantly do train. Now, again, my relationship with fitness comes from my parents. My dad and my mum, both active. My dad never sits down. He's been doing push-ups and pull-ups and sit-ups and goes for runs since I was a kid. And that's just what I grew up seeing. So I think, I'm very fortunate in that respect. I think when you grow up, you do think everyone has the same kind of upbringing, and you just assume that everyone has the same morals and the same decisions and principles and all those things. And as you get older, you're like, no, okay, maybe I was very fortunate to have two parents who were very health conscious and focused on their health and prioritize that. Like when we go to trips to Spain as a family, my dad would be up before everyone else, and I would look down from the balcony and my dad would be doing lengths in the pool. And that was just normal to me. Like even when, I'd play with my dad and me and my brother would play with my dad, it was always physical. Like it was never like we'd climb my dad, we'd fight him. Like it was always something physical. It was never just my dad just sitting on the sofa watching us play, or, he was very engaged in that respect. And I think that really had a big knock-on effect to how I see fitness and how it became, and just health in general. This is part of your life. And again, very, very fortunate in that respect. And another element, I think, is that people see you for who you are today. They don't see you from where you've come from. And I think if people if I could show you 16-year-old Ben, I don't think you'd recognize him. I wouldn't, probably. Very, very skinny, really struggled with putting on weight. Again, a lot of, part of that being just genetics, because parents are both lean. I was always running around like a headless chicken. But then obviously with cystic fibrosis affecting my digestive system, that made putting on weight quite challenging. There's so much I could go into in this, but I think that's kind of a good way of summarizing what I think people might not see. I think it's very easy for people to see who you are, the kind of the product you are today. Call myself a product, but you know what I mean? The product of who I am, all my experiences. And I think if you flip back a couple pages, you'd be pretty shocked about where I've come from and the things I've overcome. And that's not from a position of arrogance or anything like that. I'm really proud of what I've achieved. I'm really proud of the life I've set up for myself. And I think people aren't comfortable saying that. And I always make sure my clients are able to say that. Like I always ask them if they send me something that they're proud of. I'm like, I'm very proud, but are you? Like, that's more important to me. Like, are you proud of what you've done? Because if we can set that tone and people can get used to feeling proud of themselves, then we're in a pretty good spot. But yeah, I think does that answer the question? I think it does.
Yeah, I think so, mate. There's a few bits that I want to pull out there that I thought were quite interesting. I think it's a really hard thing for people to do, like particularly when they're striving towards a goal, to be content with where they're at that moment. How do you manage that for yourself and for your clients?
I remember not being able to breathe.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple for me. I remember, so whenever I got a chest infection, so for anyone who doesn't know, cystic fibrosis affects all the major organs in the body, because the mucus in our body, unlike people without CF, the mucus in your body, which is basically the kind of oil in your car, smooth and viscous, much like the water in this small bottle that I have. Whereas someone with cystic fibrosis, it's more like wallpaper paste or PVA glue, so it's a lot thicker. Now, one of the issues with that is that when we get chest infections, the bugs really, it's like that mucus is a perfect breeding environment for them, and then they get stuck and then they damage the lung tissue, and then you, over a while of getting chest infection after chest infection, you lose more and more of your lung tissue because it gets permanently damaged and scarred. The first time I ever saw loss in my lung function, I was 18. Previous to that, a lot of my issues with CF were digestion based. Again, not fun stories there, but up until that point, my lung functions were great. They were above average for someone my age, weight and height without CF. So it was something I never really thought of. And then one day I remember running to the top of the stairs in my parents' house, and my parents live in an old Victorian house. And I think I've said this before, but me, my brother, and my dad, for some weird reason, we all hold our breaths when we're running up the stairs, and we always run up the stairs. It's never like I'll just amble along. It's just flat out sprint. And I remember getting to the top of the stairs to my bedroom and then trying to breathe, and it felt like someone was like bear hugging me around my midsection. I just could not get like a good deep breath without catching and then coughing. I thought that's a bit weird. And then everything else was just far more challenging. It felt like I was just operating at like, well, if I want to give an exact percentage, I was operating at 66% because I lost about 40% of my lung functions from that chest infection. So that's how I remind myself of what we have. And I think that being grateful and being appreciative, I think there's somewhere said that your brain can't exist in that state and have anything else going on in that like in your brain. So when you're in that appreciative mindset, it's kind of just your brain just starts picking up more and more things. Like even then I'm thinking about, this is a random one, but the fact that I can see, the fact that I don't need glasses. My sister, again, horrible story, but my sister lost her eye when she was 4. She climbed up onto a bed in the caravan and basically punctured her eye in half. So growing up with my little sister, seeing all the things she had to do made me appreciate the fact that I can see. That, it's just, I think once you lock into that way of thinking, it's very easy to be appreciative. I think it's just that initial step of what you need to do to be appreciative. And again, with my clients, I do the same thing. It's very easy to focus on the things you can't do. But I say to them all the time, it's like, well, what can you do? Like, what are the things you can do right now that you would, if you were lying in a hospital bed, you'd be killing to get out and do? And again, I was in hospital for a month, couldn't leave, had tubes in my arm. And again, this is not like, don't get me wrong, like there's people that go through a lot worse, but this is my experience of worse. Like, I can't speak to anyone else's experiences other than mine. And this was horrible, like absolutely horrible, being stuck somewhere. There's no Wi-Fi even, dude. Like, well, there was, but they just wouldn't let me on it. There was loads of Wi-Fi, and I was like, can someone give me a connection to the Wi-Fi? And they're like, yeah, no, we can't. I'm like, I can see there's like 6 options here. Give me a code for one of them. They're like, no, we can't. I was like, cool. So yeah, that's how I kind of flip into it. And again, I just appreciate the fact that just the pure, I hate using luck, but because a lot of the time when people look in and they pin something to luck, it's like, well, you're not seeing all the work that went in behind that. But I am lucky in the fact that I was born when I was born. I had no impact on that. And I'm also extremely lucky to be born to my parents. I have no impact on that. So yeah, I just remind myself of that. And I think that that helps me kind of pull myself up. Not all the time, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes the appreciation just doesn't do it for me, and have to find other ways of kind of give myself a boost. But most of the time that works. Most of the time that kind of helps me reset my brain as well as my clients as well.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by this. Like an unbelievable background, and to have got to where you have today in the shape that you are, not like necessarily like bodybuilder shape, but just like how healthy and like vital and like the life that you live now. That must seem just like a complete impossibility for that little boy who was given that news of cystic fibrosis.
100%. And you're not explicitly told this, but you can kind of pick it up eventually after this conversations with doctors, that it seemed like a lot of doors were closed to me. And instead of, I don't know, I have a bit of a rebellious streak in me. I'll put it like that. And I hate not knowing why something is the way it is. I need to know. Like my dad said that to me when I was a kid. Like if he ever asked me or my brother to do something, Jamie would kind of do it. My older brother, he would just be like, okay. I'd be like, why?
Yeah.
And he's like, it's because I told you to. And I'm like, well, why? Why can't you do it? Why you get me to do it? So I think that mindset that I had was actually a tool for me, because, I heard all these doctors saying, this is unlikely, you won't be able to do this, you won't be able to do this. And again, not in those exact words, but you pick these up, these kind of proposed limitations. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like you think that, but I know in my heart, like, and it sounds cheesy, but like I just knew the guy was wrong when he's, so the example I use, when I was in hospital, there was a specialist Canadian doctor who's coming around and had a bunch of med students, and they walked into the room and I was in the bed and I could see them at the bottom of my bed. there's this guy, and there's about maybe 6 med students all came in with their clipboards, and they were just looking at me, and he was talking about what was going on. And I was listening, obviously. They were talking like I wasn't even in the room. So weird. I was just like, hi guys, what's up? You having a good day? And they were just talking about what was going on, the treatments they were doing. And I had, at this point, kind of gotten enough of the fact that they were just not even acknowledging me. And I was like, are my lung functions going to stay like this? And he just kind of turned around and he went, yeah, in all likelihood they will. And I was like, I know you're wrong. And that was like, I think I was 18. And in those circumstances, you're so used to listen to authority figures, like someone this specialist, he's come over from Canada, like he must know what he's talking about. But I just knew he was wrong. It's just something in me. I was just like, I know I can feel better. I feel bad right now, and I can feel better if I can get out of here and get back to my normal routine. And instead of assuming that all these doors were closed, I was like, I'm just going to go test them myself. I'm going to go see if I can do this. I'm going to go see if I can play rugby. I'm going to go see if I can put muscle tissue on. I'm going to see if I can improve my lung functions. And I think once I felt that confidence in myself, which I had never possessed, like I had no confidence growing up at all. Like I just didn't know what it was like. And when you start seeing those little improvements, like my lung functions going back up, I was like, all right, what else has been closed off to me that I can now go and test that door? And to me, that's the core of my coaching. Like that's what I want to give people. I want to give people those moments that I felt where I felt confident in myself for the first time, because that is infectious. Like once you get someone confident in themselves, that, watching that build and snowball into something that they wouldn't even recognize. Like I'm thinking of some of my clients right now that if I sat them down in front of who they were when I first started talking to them, they wouldn't recognize themselves both physically and mentally. And I think that's one of the things I always want to bring to the people I work with. So yeah,
absolutely, mate. I think there's like two really important things to like draw out of that. Firstly, it sounds like you very much kind of operated from like controlling what you could control, like all these authority figures telling you this stuff, like you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. It's like, sounds like you just kind of innately kind of just like you say, wants to kind of rebel against him. Like, okay, what, like I'm here, this is me, this is my situation, what can I do, what is in my control, and then just go and do that thing. Whereas it sounds like the bedside manner of that Canadian doctor was just like, oh yeah, you're probably like, this is probably you forever now. And like, how many people would listen to that and be like, okay, this is me now, I'm just going to give up because the doctor said so. So like, yeah, that's, and obviously we've spoken in previous episodes about being sort of a problem solver. It sounds like you just kind of completely embodied that. But on top of that, so something that obviously we come up against when we're coaching clients a lot of the time is sort of those negative kind of beliefs about yourself, about your abilities, about what you can do. But for you, those were obviously that, like, they weren't just coming from you; they're being reinforced by these like big authority figures who are like, obviously they see a lot of cystic fibrosis cases, and they like maybe don't want to give you false hope and that sort of things, which is fair enough. But to be like, to kind of write you off and be like, to sort of almost instill those negative beliefs rather than say, actually, yeah, this is where you're at right now, but there's a lot that is in your control. Go and do this stuff and see where you get to, and come back to us, and we'll obviously help you along that journey.
That's exactly how I see it as well. Like the analogy, my brain just works in analogies, and the way I always see this is, you think like your life is, you're sitting at a steering wheel. Now life is always going to have one side of that wheel. No matter what you do, it's going to have that side. It'll take you in directions you don't particularly want to go, and you've got no control over that. I think a lot of people just let that happen. They're just like, okay, let's get the wheel. I'll just see what happens. Whereas I was like, okay, well, I know I can control my training. I know I can control my sleep. I know I can control what I'm eating. I know I can control my mental state and the people I spend time with. And then there's the last one. I don't know what this thumb in this analogy works as, but that was me. That was me like gripping the other side of the wheel. And you know that if you've got a strong grip, you may not have both hands on the wheel, but if someone reached across and you have got one strong grip on the wheel, even if they did try and jerk it one direction, you're going to be able to resist it a little bit. Now, their influence will have some wobble on you, but you'll be able to course correct quite quickly. And that's how I see it, as like, okay, what are the things that gives me one really strong ass grip on the other side of the wheel that doesn't just go, okay, there's a chest infection and I haven't got my hand on the wheel, and it's like it just gets worse and worse. Now, again, I want to be very clear on this. I have the most common cystic fibrosis mutation, so it's a genetic mutation. I've got the most common. Cystic fibrosis being genetic, there's lots of different mutations. Some people say it's the mild one and all that stuff. Look, I'm only ever able to speak to my experiences, as I said earlier. People's experiences with CF are so vast and so different. I've spoken to people that their reality of CF is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So I can only ever speak to my experience of it, but yeah, it's I do think that there's certain things that you can control, and it's entirely up to you whether you want to do that or not. Like at the end of the day, I can put my hand on my heart and be like, look, I did what I needed to do to keep myself healthy, to experience as many of these adventures that I've said as I possibly can. But yeah, I just want to point out that like exercise didn't save me, but it's something that's definitely helped. Like, I don't think any illness is made worse by being physically strong and fit. I can't think of any, but again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I want to be big and strong. I don't want to be small and weak. And again, that was the thing from CF. Like they said, look, weight gain is going to be difficult for you. And I was like, well, you can gain weight in two different ways. You can either gain body fat or you can gain muscle. And I was like, I want to gain muscle, because all the superheroes I watched growing up, like Superman and the Power Rangers, who now I'm looking back at it, were all not jacked at all, but you know, in my head, they were jacked individuals. You know, all the people I looked up to, and my dad, I just wanted to be physically strong, because I knew that would help me mentally deal with what I have to deal with. If I physically look a certain way, that just bolsters my mental state. But yeah, hopefully that's answered the first question.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. No, I think, yeah, seeing and hearing about that journey, there's so many bits that you can kind of pull out of that. Like I said, the kind of controlling what you is in your power to control, being grateful and practicing gratitude, which is everyone kind of knows they should do it, but actually like physically going and spending 5 minutes doing that every day is like, I would say it's hard for a lot of people to actually schedule that time and do that consistently. But it's like, obviously given your background, you've kind of got that anchor, to,
Yep.
yeah, you it's, yeah, where you are right now is vastly different from where you could have been, and knowing what that's been like, like what that's been like in the past. Yeah, I guess it makes it easier to a certain extent to be grateful.
100%. And that's, I think
think
when you're around people who are like that, it's much easier for you to be like that. And that's what I try to do with my clients as well. Like I've had clients who their primary goal for the week was just every day send me 3 things that you're appreciative of. Yeah. That's like been their goal for that week. And we don't do it all the time. It's just whenever it's needed, just tune back into that. Like a lot of things we do with health and fitness, it's just a case of picking that tool up, using it for what it's needed, and then setting it back down, and then knowing when to pick it back up again.
But it also helps with, it has that snowball effect of then you're then more receptive to noticing the good things in your life. Whereas obviously we generally tend to have a negativity bias and see all the negative things, all the bad things, and kind of focus on them if you're not being mindful of that. Yeah,
I agree.
Question number 2. I think we've answered quite a bit of this anyway. So let's maybe we'll see where it goes. What experiences most changed how you think about training and health? Is there anything outside cystic fibrosis for you that has changed how you think about training and health?
Yeah, bodybuilding, doing the competitive bodybuilding stuff taught me that there's way more to life than just being in good shape. Like good shape, I'm air quoting this, because what is good shape? Like it's, you know, if you're getting up on stage and having someone else tell you whether you're in better shape than someone else, kind of a messed up process when you really step back and look at it. So I think bodybuilding and stepping away from that was a big moment in my life where I was like, hey, what am I doing this for? I'm doing this for me. I'm not doing this to get a trophy or a medal or a thumbs up from someone who I don't even know. Like, I'm not letting my accomplishments be decided by some random person who has probably bias in some respect if you go to any of those shows. So I think stepping away from bodybuilding was a big one of just like, right, well, what am I doing this for? I'm doing this for fun. I enjoy this. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the fact that I've been doing this thing for over 20 years, and the easy option for me to stop doing it is always there, and it's always looking so damn good. Like, that's not lie. Like, the idea of not training some of those days is very alluring, but I've decided more times than I've not to be like, cool, I know the easy path is right there and it's got its hand out waiting for me. I'm like, nah, I'm good. I'm going to go this direction. I'm choosing a more difficult path than anyone. No one's coming to tell me to do it. I think that's been the biggest thing for me, is like, right, how do I make sure this is something I can do until I'm physically no longer able to do it? And I think enjoyment of what I'm doing comes into that, whereas bodybuilding, I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy that aspect. There's some aspects I did enjoy, don't get me wrong, otherwise I wouldn't have done it. But I think stepping away from bodybuilding, I was like, okay, this is not a massive priority for me. I've got other things I care about. I think that was kind of the bigger one, other than obviously cystic fibrosis. But yeah, I think that's probably been the biggest impact.
Yeah. And I think, like you say, bodybuilding to a certain extent, whilst you're doing it, would have been giving your training and like your nutrition purpose and helping you to make it more consistent. But like you say, in those kind of bodybuilding circles, like you kind of alluded to earlier, whatever environment you're in, or whatever everyone else is doing, it kind of draws you into that. And I think there's only so far you can probably go down that road before it ends up becoming too much of a focus on purely pharmaceutical and purely aesthetics, which is where obviously like there are a lot of people, not to say all, but a lot of people who do competitive bodybuilding do end up with some form of body dysmorphia, potentially some form of eating disorders, that sort of thing, because you're kind of going to that very extreme of fitness and the fitness industry.
I agree.
And I think it's quite an interesting one, because I think when I first started coaching, it was like bodybuilding was kind of everything in the fitness industry was influenced by bodybuilding, but it was this inherently, not that bodybuilders are necessarily unhealthy, but when you take it to that extreme, it's like a lot of stuff they're doing becomes unhealthy. And those practices I found were kind of infiltrating what general like population people were thinking they needed to do to to lose a little bit of weight and feel a bit better and feel a bit healthier in themselves.
Mm-hmm. So the example I always use is that, when you're thinking, okay, I'm trying to build muscle tissue or get lean, who's the best at that? Oh, bodybuilders are pretty good at that. And you're like, cool. But that's like saying, who's the best driver in the world? That's who I'm going to go learn to drive my car with. And you're not going to learn much from Lewis Hamilton. I assume he's good at driving. I don't know. But that's the analogy I always use. I'm like, the amount of skills and stuff, it's irrelevant to you because you're not dealing with the conditions he in. Yes, he may be the best driver in the world, but you're not going to learn how to do a 3-point turn from Lewis Hamilton. There's someone who's better at teaching you that. Similar that we look at bodybuilders as these are the people who are at the top of doing what we're trying to do. Let's take their advice. But the first thing you've got to consider of many things, professional level bodybuilders are, in terms of genetics, the top 0.01%, I would say, to be a professional bodybuilder, for your physique to be paying, your bills. You need to be a genetic freak for that. Just simple. Next thing you've got to consider is the fact that they are taking supplements that we don't want to take, and I never wanted to take, and I'm very proud of the fact that I never went down that path. But that immediately separates it, and you're like, okay, maybe those are the people we can take some of their advice, and that doesn't mean everything they say is wrong, because it's not by any stretch of the imagination. You can take lots of things, but I think that we were taking everything the bodybuilders were saying back then and being like, this is gospel, and no one was going, actually, that's probably going to lead, if you continue down that path, as you said, you might develop body dysmorphia, which I've definitely had, and probably to a certain degree still do have. It's getting better as I'm getting older though, and not giving a shit, to be honest. And then the other aspect of it is the eating disorder side of things, which I've seen, and I have it's not something I ever want to deal with myself, and it's not something I ever want to have impacted by my coaching with anyone I work with. Eating disorders are very, very, very sad thing to see. So yeah. So you're right in terms of that
Absolutely.
degree, in terms of bodybuilding being quite prevalent when we started. But then I said, I think people are like, actually, there's
Yeah.
other people we could probably be listening to. This doesn't matter how jacked you are, you still could be not correct about
Yeah.
this topic.
Yeah. But I think the key thing with that is sort of principles versus methods. And obviously, like, you can see what methods specific people are employing to get the results that they get. But it's like having some foundational understanding of the principles of why they're applying that method.
Mm-hmm.
If you understand the principles, you can go and apply whatever method fits you and your lifestyle
You
best, and that's where you're like you'll get results for, like, for yourself or for anyone else, is understanding those things, because you then basically you've got all these different tools in the toolbox, and you don't have to like pick just this one because this person does this. It's like, okay,
exactly.
he's doing this because this does this. This helps him build this amount of muscle tissue. Okay, let's find a way to do that without maybe going quite to that level of extreme, but that fits this person in front of us. And I
Yep,
think that's a really important point
I agree. I
to
agree.
kind of consider there. Um, let's move on to question number 3. What did you believe about fitness earlier on that you no longer agree with?
That's a good question. There's probably quite a lot of stuff that I've learned about. I think one of the most important things in terms of longevity when it comes to coaching is be ready to admit that you're wrong on things that you think you're very right about. I think that's one of the greatest things you can have as a coach is be constantly willing to be proven wrong and then
Yeah.
not be like stand on your soapbox. The perfect example I like to use here is John Meadows. So John Meadows passed away a couple of years ago. He was a big bodybuilding guy, and he was at the forefront of the charge of if you're not sore the day after you've trained, you didn't train hard enough. This whole idea that like you should be leaving the gym sore, and he was the guy at the very front of that charge, being like, nah, if you didn't push yourself if you're not sore. He then, having seen a lot of research, was like, I was wrong. I I was the guy at the very front here, and I could admit I was wrong. And I think that's such a nice thing. I tell people that story all the time because, I think a lot of people, when they start training, they do associate the DOMs or the pain or the discomfort we get with like, I'm doing something good. And look, yes, you probably are at the start, but inevitably, if you continue to be as consistent as you are, we want that sense of pain to actually be gone. Like, I don't think, do you ever really get sore after your training sessions nowadays? Unless you've not trained in a while?
Mm, Sometimes, yeah. I think there's sometimes a little bit of soreness. I think a little bit is,
Stiffness. Yeah.
yeah, is probably right. But yeah, as what you're referring to is called the repeated bout effect, which basically just means that for every time you repeat a set of exercises through a certain range of motion, your body will adapt to that, and it'll be less sore as a result of doing that.
Hmm.
So yeah, like you shouldn't if you're constantly feeling sore, then you're probably pushing things a little bit too hard, because you might have some mild soreness, but you shouldn't have that
It
crippling
shouldn't.
DOMs
Yeah.
every time you train, unless you've had a period of not training for a while,
And
or
that's it.
you've changed your exercise and you're going through a slightly different range of motion, because that is like it's going into deep ranges of motion under load that probably will cause the most soreness. So if you're going into like some deep loaded stretches with certain exercises, then you
That's it.
probably will have a bit more soreness.
If soreness was the predominant factor in growth, then every single session we looked at would be super slow eccentrics with as much load as possible, sitting in that stretch. Like you could get someone in a lot of discomfort, but that doesn't, it's not the only thing, and it's not the thing that's going to make you build muscle tissue. Now, I will say it's good for biofeedback in terms of if someone's new to the gym, they do an exercise, let's say like a lat pull down, and they didn't know what they were targeting. And then the next day they're like, oh, my under my arms are sore. You're like, yeah, because you did a lat pull down. That's one of the things that I think it's really good for. But that's one of the
Yeah.
things I think, yeah, I got out of quite quickly is like that being one. There's so many things that I now don't believe in that I did. I think anything to do with supplements, because at the start of training, supplements are like magic beans and you believe in that because of the marketing. And then you're like, actually, I think the biggest one, to kind of summarize it all, if it sounds too good to be true, you're right. Like it's not true. Like if you see anything that you're like, oh my goodness, that's the last thing, that's the last piece of the puzzle I need to be doing, and that's what's going to get me results, I'd say pump the brakes and be like, it's probably not. It's probably not. And that refers to everything. Like, this is the best exercise to build legs. This is the best exercise to build biceps. This is the best supplement you could take. This is the best food. If it's that clear of a statement, understand that's not true. It's so individual. We're all individual. We all have such unique upbringings, genetics, priorities, all those things. Like, when you start really getting into the nitty gritty of it'd be impossible for like one thing to work for everyone. So let's maybe bump the brakes on that and be like, so I'd say that. I think there's no easy answer when it comes to this stuff. There's no simple quick fix or hack. I think that's the greatest lesson I've learned, that this just takes hard work, showing up consistently, making more good decisions than you make, I don't want to say bad decisions, but decisions that aren't driving you towards what you're trying to do. That's the answer. And I think people don't like to hear that. People want to say like, oh, it's this one exercise that you're not doing, or this one food that you're not consuming, this random berry from Nicaragua that, melts body fat. And you're like, really? Nah, I think we would have all been on that. So yeah, I think that's it. The fact that if it sounds too good to be true, it is. It's probably the biggest thing I've learned.
I'm gonna press you a little bit more, because I don't think you've really given me a specific thing that you used to believe that you no longer believe. I think your philosophy is perfect, but I want to know something very specific that you used to do or got coaching clients to do that you now, if you were to look at it, you'd kind of cringe a little bit.
I'm trying to think what it could be. That I was just great from the start, Tom, to be honest. No, let me think. I think, okay, this is kind of a cop-out answer as well, but there being a specific exercise you need to do. Like, everyone needs to squat. For example, I used to think like squat, bench, deadlift, like that you had to do those, and if you didn't do those, then you weren't training. And you know what? It was from that, because I assumed for a long time there was exercises you need to do. Squat, barbell squat, for example, because that's kind of a thing in the gym industry, like in the fitness industry, like squat, it's all about squatting. And then it was actually speaking to Neil Hill, who was the trainer for Flex Lewis, who was a 212 Mr. Olympia winner for, I don't know, like 4 or 5 times. And I remember him saying to me, we had that conversation, he goes, Flex doesn't squat. And I was like, what? This is like, Flex never squats. I was like, are you serious? He goes, nah, just leg presses. He's like, you don't need to be doing it. Like, you got to find the exercises that work for you as an individual. Like, there's no like, this is a must work, like, exercise. So I think that's probably going to be it. Like, the fact that there's no exercise that you need to be doing. It's what works for you as an individual. So that's a cop-out answer, but there you go. I couldn't think of anything else.
That's all good, mate. I'll accept that. I'll accept that.
Thank you.
Okay, question number 4. When you're working with someone long-term, what matters more to you than sets, reps, or even the program that they're doing?
Their mental state, 100%.
Yeah.
Like, it all starts from here. Like, my experience for this is my medication. So basically the medication I was on for a while, Calf Trio, I was forced into a position where I had to pick between my physical health and my mental health. So physically, this medication, it made me think that I didn't have CF, which is crazy. Like, I forgot that I had it a lot of the time. I didn't need to take as many tablets because my pancreas was working that bit better. So, the thing I do every single time that reminds me of my CF, I was having to do that a lot less. I could laugh, I could talk, I could breathe properly. I just felt like a normal person. It was incredible. The way I've described it to people is like, imagine living your entire life and having the tap turned like 3/4 of the way around, and then someone going, here, you can actually turn that all the way around. That's kind of what it felt like to me, taking that medication. Like, it felt like a new portion of me was unlocked, which is, at 31, living your entire life, like feeling like it's almost like I got another sense. Like it's so hard for me to describe what it felt like. But after a while, I started to notice that it was starting to affect me mentally. And I basically had to choose between either my physical health or my mental health. And I realized that you can be as physically healthy as you want, but if you're not happy or you're not able to be happy, is a better way of phrasing it, none of that matters. Like none of it matters. And I think, that to me is the most important aspect when I work with someone. Putting that into perspective is like, are you doing good? Is this helping you in a way to get that confidence like we talked about? Are you punishing yourself with what we're doing? Because anyone can punish themselves. Like if you wanted to do an extreme fat loss challenge, most of the time, if you're doing something like that, it's the people that typically aren't too happy that can really push themselves to those levels you need to go to really get very, very, very lean. And that's not what I want. I don't want, like, leanness is not happiness, and that obsession isn't happiness. I think getting someone to a point where, and I use this all the time, the point I want to get to with a client is if I wrote a check, an old school check, and wrote down a bunch of zeros in that and said, right, I'm going to give you this, but if I give you this, you've got to reverse everything you've achieved, every lesson you've learned, every session you've done, and go back to where you were when we started working together. That's the goal. I want them to be like, no, thank you. I'm good. No matter what you give me, it would not take away. I couldn't trade it for what I've experienced and what I've learned. And again, that's the good and the bad. Because I think a lot of people get into a trading pattern or into a program, and they assume that everything's going to be great and they're going to be able to hit all the sessions and get all their meals and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, like, you should be going into this thinking, I've got to hold on to this as best I can, and things are going to get in the way. I'm going to get sick. I'm going to go on holiday. You've got to assume that this thing will not break, but have to move around a little bit. So I think that's the most important thing to me is get to the point where if I offered them a blank check and said, what would it take for you to reverse everything you've been through, everything we've learned, all the wins, all the losses, everything, what would it take for me to, how many zeros would I need to put in that? The goal is like, nah, I wouldn't. That to me, that's the most important part about coaching, and the question that I really want to get to at the end.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I think, I completely agree in terms of, like, say, everyone expects kind of plain sailing. It's like, here's the program. I just go and do this. This is what I need to do. But it's actually probably the things that you learn when things aren't going so well about how to adjust around injuries, or how to adjust when life is busy or you're more stressed, or that sort of thing. It's like, it's those lessons and those tools, I think, are probably like the most valuable thing that people can get from that coaching process, like going through those problems and coming out the other side with obviously someone standing beside you and kind of helping you along that journey. I think that's where you really like learn a lot about yourself, and also about how to manage your situation to get to where you want to get to and stay there consistently.
Exactly. It's either, I say this all the time, you either win or you learn. That's it. That's how I see everything. It's like, okay, if I didn't win in this case, what did I learn about this? What do I need to go back and apply to after being through and going through what I went through? But yeah, I think that's it. 100%. Like you gotta make sure the client knows that, and the person you work, even the word client, I don't like the word client. Like to me, it's detached from what, I mean, I'm sure I'm speaking for you as well, but the level of like care we have for the people working with, client just seems to me quite a stale and uncaring term, and I just don't know what, like my bros, my buddies, my little team. I don't know what to call them, but like I said,
your fellowship, isn't it?
My fellowship, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah, I mean, I'm saying this because I say this to my clients individually and to them as a group, but I just want to say to them this right now, the fact that as much as I've helped them, they've helped me. I am so, so grateful to be working with the people I'm working with, because they are genuinely lovely humans who they'll ask me how I'm doing. And I think that's such an underappreciated thing to be asked as a coach. Like people just like, a lot of my clients will be like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm good. And it's not always I'm good. I think it's another thing you got to get used to is like, I'm good, I'm bad, I'm happy, and I'm sad. I'm everything that a human should experience in a collection of days. But for the most part, I'm good. And I think that's something I really love about my job, the fact that I do they give me a boost just as much as I give them. It's a very symbiotic relationship. I got to use the word symbiotic. Nice.
Nice.
Check.
Nice. Wicked. Okay. That's a very, very solid answer.
Thank you.
I won't press you for more details on that one. Um, our last question, question number 5. What do you want people to believe about training after working with you for a year? And is there anything else that you want to kind of add to this conversation that you've not touched on?
I think after working with me for a year yeah. I mean, I literally just said this. I want them to realize how capable they are when they're put in the right environment and they're given the right set of tools to be successful in that environment, or regardless of what it is. I think, as I said, I say this to my clients all the time. When they're winning, I'm winning. Like, it's just that simple. I don't want them to be doing anything else other than that. And winning always isn't just a case of, like, as I said, the standard sense of winning. I mean, winning as in, like, understanding that when I didn't get this thing, well, what did I learn from that? That's what I mean by that. So I think the confidence in what they can actually do, because I think so many people don't ever get to the right environment, I'll put it like that they can see what they're capable of doing. And
Yeah.
I very fortunately landed, in a lot of situations that allowed me to prove that to myself, that I was capable of doing this thing, and I can do this, and I can play at this level, and I felt, as I said, growing up, I felt not ostracized, but I felt different to everybody, and not in a good way. And I think the greatest thing for me, the idea that I went from what was essentially a burden to my parents, and I'm sure they would disagree with this, but just practically speaking, if I wasn't there, they wouldn't need to have gone to my CF clinics. We wouldn't have need to worry about my medication when we're traveling, getting travel insurance, all these things. And then even things like thinking into my future of like whether I was going to get a job, whether I was going to get married, all these things that I'm sure my parents had to think about. So again, I grew up thinking I was a bit of a burden. My parents did a great job of not making that feel more, but I did still get that sensation. And now the fact that I'm in a position where I can help people, there's no words I can use to describe the feeling of going from this to that gives you. And if I can give people 1% of how it made me feel going from someone who was, again, I'm using the word lesser, but that's not a great word for it, but it'll do for this, to then feeling useful and someone that people want to spend their time with, and people who actually and look forward to speaking to. One of the nicest things that a lot of my clients say, which is again a very nice thing to be able to say, is that after a call with me, they can feel like they can run through a brick wall. Like I give them the belief in themselves that maybe no one has ever given them, and that I had to kind of create myself. And I think if I can give someone, if I can be the battery pack to those people, rather than the vampire that sucks all the energy out of them, which again, a lot of people have a lot of those in their lives, the idea that I could be the thing that gives them that belief is something I am so damn grateful for. And the other day, actually, one of my clients asked, like, how do you do this? Like, how do you come into these calls and you're so positive but realistic at the same time? And first of all, I was like, that's so nice to be asked that, because I know how much he appreciates that. He said, like, I'd have to go sit in a dark room for a while and just collect my thoughts after just doing one of these calls, and you're doing them week in, week out, day in, day out. I was like, I would love to be like, for relatability sense, be like, oh yeah, no, it's really hard. I have to go with that. But it's not. It's honestly not. I love that this is something that I'm good at, that I get to help people with. And yeah, as I said, I would love to be like, oh yeah, it's really, really difficult. I need to like really collect myself, but I don't. I just go in and I love making people happy. I love seeing people smiling. I love giving them a perspective. Now, don't get me wrong. I think people might think that I'm just going to butter people up and tell them they're doing a great job when they're not. No, if you're not doing a good job, I'm going to remind you that, okay, this is what you've told me you want. The actions you're taking are not going to get you there. So just a reminder, you need to get out of your own way. And I've had to have those conversations a lot of time, but that comes from the place of, look, as I said earlier, when they're winning, I'm winning. And that's always my goal. Like, I want them to be the envy of all the people around them, being like, what are you doing? Like, how are you feeling this good? How are you, how is this your mindset? All those things. And then ideally they'd be like, well, there's this guy Ben and he's great and blah, blah, blah. Here's his card. Like, that's the goal at the end of the day. But yeah, I think that kind of answers the question. I love the fact that this is my job and I get to help people from being in a position where I didn't think that was ever possible. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. That does answer the question. That's awesome, mate. And I completely agree. I think, obviously not everyone, but sometimes as a coach, you are the only person who's a cheerleader for that, like the people that you're helping.
Unfortunately,
Which is obviously, if that is the case, it is quite sad, but it's amazing to be able to take on that role to help someone and help them see what they are actually capable of, particularly when it is like it's them that's kind of getting in their own way a lot of the time, and like sort of alluded to kind of mindset earlier. I think 99% of the time it is a mindset problem, because at the end of the day we've got all the information that we need, and some of it like might not be completely relevant, and it sort of there's obviously a lot of overwhelm in terms of just the information out there, but a lot of the time it is a mindset problem, and kind of getting out your own way, that's where you'll really start to make progress towards what you want to do, and like who you want to be.
That's exactly it. And I think it's a privilege, and as you said, like, it's sad, but it's also a privilege that we get to be that person for a lot of people. And it just makes all the wins more sweet whenever you see them. I said there's nothing greater than, in my opinion, whenever you finish up a coaching call, the way I do things, the best thing I get to say at the end of a coaching call is keep doing what you're doing. That's the nicest. And I say that to my clients. Anytime they hear me utter those words, they should be proud of themselves, because again, we're so, as you said earlier, it's so natural for us to beat ourselves up and perceive all our lackings and our pitfalls. But I think it's nice to have someone come in. I mean, the amount of clients I've gotten on the call and they're kind of down in the dumps, and then I'm able to give them a different perspective. Perspective is everything. Absolutely everything. Like, they're seeing what they see from their perspective. I can see it from a different perspective. And that sometimes just giving them that perspective is enough for them to be like, oh, actually, I'm doing well. Like, I'm getting more protein than I usually used to get, or my steps are improving, or I'm now training in the gym. Whenever I'm thinking of clients now, that some of my clients I worked with were terrified to go to the gym, and now they're not even thinking about it. One got stuck in Josh, shout out to Josh. He got stuck in the turnstile on his first day at the gym. I was like, nothing bad will happen to you, Josh. You'll be fine. And he's like, I got stuck in the turnstile on the way in. I was like, oh God. It's like, well, it's all plain sailing from here, buddy. Like, you'll be fine. So, yeah. But no, it's an amazing job we get to practice, and I'm very privileged of the people I get to work with and have worked with over 16 years, which is crazy. 16.
Yeah.
About what is? Yeah, I was like 20 when I started doing this.
That's mad.
I'm an old man. That's what my knees are telling me anyway.
Well experienced, shall we say?
Well experienced. High level. I'm at a high level. That's it.
I've got one more question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather live in a world where magic is real but technology is primitive, or a world where advanced technology exists but magic is forbidden or doesn't exist?
How powerful is this magic? Is it like able to rival the technology?
It's magic. It's just
do whatever. Okay, so it's my interpretation of magic. Ooh, okay. And I'm going to ask a follow-up question to this. Can I do magic? Am I a magic wielder? Is magic available to everyone, like technology is to a certain degree?
I think it'd be unrealistic for everyone to be magic. So let's say you've got a 1 in 100 chance of being a magic wielder.
Okay, so the answer is very simple. If I don't have magic, I don't want magic. I don't want other people to have magic, because I'd just be sitting there in my cave with no technology, being like, look at them casting.
But what let's say it's a magic world. So there's dragons, there's loads of mythical creatures, there's all these magical beings and magical potions that you could potentially take. You could become friends with a wizard who casts magic on you.
If I didn't have it myself.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to go with the magic because
Yeah.
I would like to see what that looks like. I would like to see what a wizard would be like in real life. I also think it'd be weird. Yeah, I would go with that. Plus, if you think about it, like we're kind of living in that world already of the technology being pretty damn crazy. I mean, look at the technology we have now that we didn't have when we were kids. Like I was playing on the Sega, which was a 2D game, and now we're playing virtual reality and all that stuff in a very short period of time. So yeah, just for the experience, I would go to the magic world. What about you?
Yeah. I think it would have to be magic because it's technology is pretty advanced and just getting more and more advanced.
Slightly scary. Slightly scary.
I'm a little bit worried as to what the world would even look like in sort of 5 or 10 years time, and kind of thinking about my boys and what their lives will look like even when they finish school. So yeah, let's just bury our heads in the sand and just pretend to be in a magic world.
I mean, that's what I do anyway, dude. I play Warhammer. That's literally what I do every week.
Yeah, I think it would have to be a magic world. Do you have anything else that you want to say? Any last words of wisdom? Any last thoughts off the back of today's episode?
A lot of the stuff that I cover and a lot of the principles that I cover are in my book, Fitness Without Limits, which is usually behind me, but it's not. Here we go. Oh, there it is. You can. There it is, right there.
Oh,
so if you fancy getting that book, I'm very proud. That's one of the things I'm extremely proud of, and one of the things I definitely didn't have on my checklist of things I would have achieved when I was a kid. If you told me that I'd written a book, I would have been like, did I draw with crayons? Is it a coloring book? Because if that's the case, then I would believe you. But no, I'm very, very proud of that book. And I said a lot of the principles and a lot of things we talked about in this episode are going to be there. So if you want to read them or listen to them, the audiobook's also available. Go and check it out and leave a review if you can. That'd be massively appreciated.
Nice. Did you do the audio for the audiobook?
I did.
Excellent.
Which was challenging when you're dyslexic. It's very, very challenging. That was probably the part I was the most nervous about. That's the most nervous I've been about anything that I can really think of. Reading that book was... My brain does not read sentences normally. My brain just jumps all over the page, and I had to really, it took 5 days of being in a recording booth. Wow. And the guy I worked with, Niall, was an absolute gentleman. But very, very challenging, but also, again, extremely rewarding, because now I can say I've got a book and I also did the audio for it. And some people are fans of my accent, which is lovely to hear. But if you want 5 or 6 hours of my accent, go buy the book.
Nice. Yeah, I can. I've got a copy of the book.
You do.
It's very, very good.
I think you were one of the first people to see the draft of it as well.
I probably was.
You were. Yeah, you were one of the first people, because I remember getting the layout and then definitely not showing you when we were at the at the lads weekend.
They might be listening.
Look at this. Yeah. Well, hopefully people have enjoyed this episode. If you did, again, please leave reviews, share the podcast. We really, really appreciate it. Like it on YouTube if you want to watch it alongside this. Go and check it on YouTube if you haven't already. Do all the social media stuff. Share it, like it, talk about it, comment on it. We really appreciate it. And we're going to be chatting about Tom next week, so I'm looking forward to that too. I hope everyone has a great day. Again, always remember, check in on your friends. Just drop them a message. It doesn't take much. Please check on the people you care about, and we will see you in the next one. Love you.
See you next week, guys. Bye.